Dear students, welcome to my classroom of environmental sociology. Today, I'm going to give you some ideas about the laws at the national and the international levels with regard to the protection of environment. This is something very much interesting and also thought-provoking. We need to protect environment because Mother Earth gives us the shelter which helps us to grow. It is important for our holistic development. And this concept of protecting nature is not something which is unique. Rather, it's a very much part of our culture, of our tradition. If I take a look to our Hindu culture and heritage. If I talk on Indian philosophy, in Indian philosophy, we get certain concepts which are related to environment or nature or prakriti. When we talk on the entire world is our family, which is a concept as depicted in Hindu philosophy, and it's known as Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We also talk how can we protect or safeguard the nature. And when we talk on Purusha and Prakriti, there we always try to find out a peaceful coexistence between the nature and the human beings, or a peaceful staying of humans amidst the nature, where both human and nature can have same concerns or interests, that is to make the world a better place for living. What is the role of nature with this regard? In nature we find the animals. Human is also an animal, but I'm talking about the animal world which grows amidst the nature. That's why nature is also responsible to maintain the equilibrium or the status quo so that we can have a world which is full of joy, happiness and living beings, and which can give us that kind of positive vibe so that we all grow together, the animals and also the humans, the greatest animals amongst all. This is something which is very much philosophical, and also it is talking about something spiritualistic. Protection of nature and also worshipping nature, both the concepts are having same connotation. If we take a look to the days of Indus Valley civilization, that time the people of that particular civilization, they used to worship Mother Goddess, the goddess of fertility. If I take a look to our Vedic civilization, we have the gods who are associated with the various forces of nature like air, water, thunder, etc. So this is something through which we can try to understand that protection of nature and to safeguard nature or environment is a deep-rooted concept in our culture and also in our tradition. If I talk about the Western world as well, there also we find that through various religions And also if I take a look to the other religions apart from Hinduism and Christianity, we have seen how those religions talk for the protection of the human beings and of the entire world. How to protect the Mother Earth? Why the earth is mother to us? Here we can apply the concept of ecofeminism. That means our mother and the earth both are having same empathy and sympathy towards us. A woman is very much tolerant, like the nature. But that tolerance has also a level. A woman can become angry or hostile with the situation, can become aggressive like Durga or Kali to prove her worth or power or Shakti. Similarly, the nature, when it gets frustrated with our efforts to destroy her, then she sometimes replies back with the threats of natural calamities like flood, earthquake, tsunami, etc. This is something which is very much relevant. It's something which is a scientific discourse, like how we are trying to protect the nature, and it is something which is having a literary expression as well, or subjective understanding. I can talk on the various explanations with regard to the protection of nature. If I talk on the writings of Rabindranath Tagore and Mahatma Gandhi, both of them emphasized on the need of protecting the Mother Earth. Mahatma Gandhi, in his writings, especially in Hind Swaraj, he talked about how can we promote indigenous industries and how can we back to our roots. He criticized the Western civilization, which is based on machines. Rabindranath Tagore also was very much against of utilizing the fruits of technology and science to a great extent. He was not that much against of using them as a whole, but he preferred to have a life which is having the minimal exposure to science and technology, apart from the situation where the presence of science and technology is very much required. In his Vishwabharati Shantiniketan project, we have seen that how he tried to impart education in a situation where nature plays an important role. He prefers to have the schools at the lap of nature or in the open air. His son, Rabindranath Tagore, who was behind the Sriniketan project, he went to Europe to learn the techniques through which he can make agriculture more sustainable. Rabindranath and Gandhiji, both of them, they were the first generation of environmentalists in our country. And if I would like to talk about the Western perception, the subjective perceptions of protecting nature, then I will definitely highlight on the writings of William Blake and John Milton. William Blake, in his various writings, had a wonderful combination of thoughts where he had given a human face to a flower, or a human was having something like an animal. Suppose a human was having a tail. By this way, he was trying to have a kind of coexistence between humans and the other animals, where they were sharing some of the organs and making the world more beautiful. You can imagine that when we are having a flower with a human face, that definitely makes our days better. Or if I give you the example of Paradise Lost, that which was perhaps indicating towards the environmental degradation when Eve, she tried to eat or ate a piece of the forbidden apple. So with this background, I would like to begin my lecture on the laws related to the protection of environment. We have both the national and the international laws with this regard. Like, it was not only depending on the goodwill of the people, rather we, the humans, gradually thought to have some legalities so that we could protect the environment with more dedications and with more seriousness. What was the need which made us compelled to protect environment legally? Why we thought to have laws? Here I will definitely say that the advent of capitalism made us the slaves of the same. If I give an example from the book by Daniel Hedrick, the name of the book is The Tools of Empire, where he wanted to say that the British colonizers, when they came to our country, they came with the tools of empire, that means the tools which ushered modernization of our standard of living. They came with electricity, modern other amenities, like how we can have a more comfortable life than what we used to have previously. And they also came with their language, which can be termed as cultural hegemony by Gramsci, that also made us crippled and dependent with regard to our knowledge base, that we became the slaves of the language other than our vernacular. They came with the Western medicines, what David Arnold had stated, that intrusion colonized our body so that we could give more efforts and more dedication to follow the orders of our colonial masters. So this is something very much important and interesting, that which is telling us how capitalism made us the slaves of our materialistic gains and profits, and the reflection of our greed got a permanent solution with the advent of colonialism. And this kind of colonialism made urbanization more pertinent. We need to destroy the woods. We encouraged deforestation so that we would be able to have urbanization or can enjoy the fruits of modern civilization. So this is something which was later being understood by the political thinkers and diplomats, irrespective of their country and race and origin, that we need to protect environment and we should not be always the slaves of capitalism, because if we destroy environment, if we harm the Mother Earth, then we are the one who are definitely going to suffer. Here, science played an important role because that made the thinkers around the world to understand that how we are getting victimized with the natural calamities like earthquake, flood, etc., just because of our, what I can say, inhuman attitude towards the utilization of the natural resources. So, what I can say that from 1930s onwards, the thinkers or the diplomats or the politicians in the Western world, they started thinking how they can protect the environment with the legal aids. Here, the destruction of ecosystems and the exploitation of wild flora and fauna were the first environmental issues to receive widespread international attention. In 1963, the World Conservation Union, a non-governmental organization NGO dedicated to environmental conservation, called on all nations to take steps to protect endangered species. Following a conference on the issue, 80 nations promulgated the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, which is also known as CITES. CITES is an international agreement designed to protect endangered plants and animals by regulating the trade of endangered species or products derived from them. Since going into effect in 1975, CITES has developed widespread international support. Currently, 172 nations are party to the convention. So here I would like to say that kind of initiative which was taken from 1960s, 70s, it started from 1930s onwards, that I have already mentioned. Here I would like to give one more reference for your better understanding. Decisions by international courts or arbitrators such as the International Court of Justice or the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea also shape international environmental law that we are talking about, the International Environmental Law, or which is also having a short form IEL. The trial smelter arbitration case of 1938 and 1941, one of the earliest international environmental law cases, involved a dispute between the United States and Canada over air pollution from a Canadian smelting factory. The pollution blew across the American-Canadian border and destroyed crops in the state of Washington. So this is something where we are getting an idea about how this process started or began. So there are many references in my academic script as well as in my PPT which you can refer or which you can use for your critical thinking or for the enhancement of your critical thinking. When we are talking about the international scenario, it's also important for us to mention about United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, where we find like how the entire world, especially giving emphasis to the first world countries, are trying to safeguard the nature with the aid of various laws. So when we talk about this, like the history of international environmental law, I'm repeating the history of international environmental law, then there are certain discourses which we need to remember. If I talk about the Stockholm Declaration, like when people in 1972, they first thought to have something with the protection of nature or environment more systematic. And later on we find like that many conferences or conventions took place worldwide where United Nations gave utmost support so that those conventions became very much effective to protect the Mother Earth. And here I will mention the Earth Summit which took place at Rio de Janeiro in 1992, which was a landmark with regard of the laws which we have to protect earth, water and also air. I'm not going into detail because you will get all this information in my PPT as well as in my academic script. So some recent developments in this scenario which grab our attention are like I am saying like that, giving you some examples. A contemporary landmark of great relevance, especially for Latin America, is Advisory Opinion 23, which took place in 2017 on the environment and human rights of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. So this is something which is a latest, what I can say, development with this regard, and also other developments like how the diplomats, they are trying to relate the protection of environment with the concept of sustainable development that I have already mentioned in the beginning of my lecture when I talk on how in our Indian culture and tradition we have the concept of Purusha and Prakriti and how we worship the God and goddesses related to nature. So now it's a time for you to have some kind of a brainstorming. So I have something to share with you. So who wrote Hind Swaraj? There are 4 options: Rabindranath Tagore, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Jawaharlal Nehru and Mahatma Gandhi. The right answer is option 4, that is Mahatma Gandhi. Dear students, hope you have enjoyed the lecture till now. Now I am trying to give you a very short introduction about the laws which we have in India to protect environment. We have the environmental NGOs, we have the provisions like permits, like that whether we can permit some companies with regard to the usage of the natural resources, like how they are using the natural resources or whether they are polluting the air with their chemical or the wastes from their factories or mills. So that is something which is always bothering the authorities. With this regard, I must say that the National Green Tribunal has ordered the environmental regulatory authorities, that is the Central Pollution Control Board, CPCB, and the State Pollution Control Boards, SPCBs, to strictly enforce and take into action the Comprehensive Environmental Pollution Index. So these are the latest developments like that which we have, and started from 2000 onwards, like from 2010 onwards. All the information you will be able to get in my academic script, but I'm not that much sure like that before the landmark with this regard, like as I'm talking from from this 21st century, like that definitely it's a landmark, because as I'm getting some what I can say, like some important steps or measures with regard to the protection of environment. But what happened in the last century, like in the 20th century, I think was not that much clear to us, and perhaps the laws were there but they were not that much active. That kind of enthusiasm we can notice from this 21st century, I must say. So there are certain areas like where we can implement the laws. Those areas are like with regard to the protection of environment. So these areas are a critical polluted area, CPA, a severely polluted area, SPA, and other polluted areas, OPAs. So there are three categories, and we implement the laws accordingly by measuring the severity or the length and breadth of that particular problem or intensity. There are certain areas that where we have the laws to be very specific. I must say with regard to water, air, we have various laws, and also we have the law, the Environment Act of 1986. But definitely, as I have mentioned, that these laws which were passed in 20th century, how far they were that much active, that is, a question for controversy, or a question, like which creates some kind of doubt in our mind. So that is definitely, something where we are not that much sure about it. But from 21st century onwards, definitely the initiatives have become more, what I can say, prompt and satisfactory. So we also have acts related to e-waste. E-waste rules like that, how we can, discard the e-waste. And that particular law was passed in the year 2016. Batteries rules 2001, biomedical waste management rules in 2016, plastic waste management rules in 2016, solid waste management rules in 2016, construction and demolition waste management rules in 2016, hazardous and other waste rules in 2016, manufacture, storage and import of hazardous chemicals rule, which was passed in 1989. But basically most of the laws were passed in 2016. That means, in this 21st century. If I continue, there are other laws or regulations as well, like Coastal Regulation Zone Notification, which was passed in 2019. It's a very recent development with this regard. Environment Impact Assessment Notification, which is some kind of, a statutory body, like which has this kind of responsibility to assess the risk with regard to environmental pollution. And also Wildlife Act, which was passed long time back, 1972, Forest Act of 1980, Public Liability Insurance Act of 1991, Biological Diversity Act of 2002, National Green Tribunal Act of 2010, and many more. So these are the, examples which help us to understand like where we are standing and who are the regulatory authorities with regard of exercising the power legally. They are the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change, CPCB, SPCBs, district level authorities, etc. So you will be able to get all this information in a much elaborated manner in my academic script and also in my PPT. I have already mentioned about the permits, like that there is a provision of permitting the companies and also other agencies with regard to the usage of natural resources and how they are taking care of the environment. Also, I talked about the environmental NGO. And here I must mention the name of Bandana Shiva and how she is trying to promote sustainable development with the help of the concept ecofeminism. And you can go to her website to check that what she is doing with this regard, like to make agriculture more sustainable. If I would like to conclude, I must say that this is not the time to conclude at all, but this is the time to become more proactive with regard to environmental protection or to protect our environment. These laws are just the laws which are making us more concerned and more aware about environment. Definitely these laws are helping us to understand, but laws are laws only. We are the people who will be implementing these laws and who will be making others to understand the essence or the meaning of these laws. So it's better to have a kind of awareness. It's better to have a kind of sensitization with regard to the laws and what are there. That means the provisions of the laws. Because most of the people, they don't have ideas about why we are having these laws and how we are implementing these laws. And if we are not following the laws, then what kind of penalty we are supposed to get. So we need to have legal workshops where the students can play a very important role to make the nation aware about environmental degradation or decay and what the laws we have to protect the Mother Earth. Thank you.